can you see the chat room? Can you see if Samuel's in the room yet? Because for some reason my chat isn't opening.
I am here if you can hear me.
Oh, okay, I can hear you. We can hear you.
I was just listening to what was being talked about. You know,
I'm sorry, I was rambling on and trying to just basically put a face on everything that's been going on.
Since the onset of the second sun, there's been a harmonic change in the upgrading in the Schumann resonance and everything else, and the connection to the genetic DNA enhancement is part of the ascension of the two suns.
I agree. But before we even get into that, I want you to give yourself a proper introduction to our audience because this is the first time you're on this show. So Absolutely. Please do so.
Hi, everybody. My name is Samuel Hofman. I'm the admin of a Facebook group called Montana Skywatcher, and we've been watching the Nibiru group since the early onset of our solar system mixing in with the other half of our larger binary solar system. I've known about it for roughly since the early, about 1978, 1979, when I wrote a paper on our binary solar system because I knew that because of the science I had been taught in my college preparatory high school, that there had to be more than what we were experiencing from the solar system because of the aberration everybody was talking about in the early 70s. With Planet X and the strange exterior orbitation behavior that went on at the outer reaches of our solar system. And then my paper was noticed by the government, and then at one point in time I was sequestered into a 30-year non-disclosure agreement, which ended in 2010. And we'll leave it at that.
Well, and you know what, Sam? Do you like Samuel or Sam? Does it make a difference?
Whatever you prefer to say.
Okay. Well, I feel comfortable with Sam, but here's the thing, Sam. The reality is you understood what was going on way back then when they were actually teaching real science, real math, real cosmology, real physics, real everything. Now we live in a society of regurgitated false information that supposedly with that information will get you a position in some so-called university or some government job, which they expect you to behave like a good little sheeple and not, even if you are awakened, not to rock the boat, because the moment you rock the boat, you lose it all. You lose the
I was
house,
thrown out of
the kids,
out of every school I went to because
exactly,
my ratio of experience versus the people and the teachers that were teaching me, they basically couldn't, deal with me, and they labeled me ADHD and all of this, and what it basically boiled down to, because I was rated by the U.S. government as having a very high IQ, and they basically told me that I was even smarter than Einstein, and I had finished his equations without even realizing how simple they were. I threw out the gravitational universe. We live in an electric universe. It's done. The unification model that everybody is seeking is the same thing as subatomic chemistry. What works in the subatomic is also in the astroatomic. One rule. There is not two sets of rules for chemistry and then out there. Go ahead.
Well, you know what blows me away, Sam? It's all about frequency. And it's all about frequency and waves. That's all it's all about.
Well, it's the structure of everything. It's electrically, because in physics, sound equals light equals matter. And there is no separation. Everything is connected. Everything is part of this massive chemistry equation that goes out to the ends of the universe, because that is the set of rules that's holding it together. Otherwise, we'd have paradox and nothing would ever... we wouldn't have time, we wouldn't have life, we wouldn't have space. It's in a functioning pattern.
Well, Sam, I go even further than that. I say that time doesn't exist. It's a linear creation.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. I don't mean to step over you, and I apologize for that.
No, not at all. Shown, you're the guest.
I had a meeting face-to-face with a Pleiadian in the mid-'80s. And they informed me of a great deal of information, so much so that I couldn't even deal with the amount of information, and I ended up asking them to stop. They took me through a little tour of time, and I don't absolutely recall how they managed to show me this, But they showed me that the Pleiadians can step aside time, and they can selectively, like picking an album on a jukebox, select where they want to go. And they described it to me that they were from the future, and that history had already been written for me, and they could just look me up, which they informed me of a great deal of my life, which has absolutely come true. And so I'm wholeheartedly believe it.
That just small statement right there is enough in a nutshell to make you ponder.
Yeah, it makes your brain crazy because they've already informed me of a good deal of what's yet to come, and I couldn't believe that what they were.
Let me ask you, Samuel. Are they allowing you to share some of that with us?
I do have a set of rules where I have to kind of not really cause a level of panic or anything like that, but we are basically. People worry about invasions, and people worry about, ET coming down, and what everybody doesn't understand, it is so much larger in what's been going on, and when you need to think Star Wars over instead of just Earth as being the only little rock out there that has life, and there's no life anywhere else, because there's millions and billions of races out there, and their tech level is so beyond anything man even perceives as doable, and we are a part of a larger binary solar system, and our tech level is way less than the other half of ours, and those, of course, are the Nibiru planets, and Nibiru and Ceru and Uri and Nepesity and Atu and all these other. That's the other half of our larger binary solar system, and those are the people, and there are people on those planets that run everything. And every 3,654 years, the two planetary systems rejoin through a static electricity and all of this, and it has to do with the transitioning to the upper plane of the galactic and all of this, and there's these cycles that we go through. But each time, they come back and collect commodities from Earth, and we are basically the backwater factory for the larger half of the other.
Sam, that sounds familiarly close to what Zacharias Sitchin's work was alluding to. Is that kind of
right.
So you okay? All right, go ahead.
Well, it has to do with monatomic gold and certain other byproducts that, of course, can be only created on Earth. Now, people are worried about the changing, and, everybody talks about wormwood and nemesis, and there's a lot of internet misguided hooey that is out there, and you have to be really careful as to who you pull the source of information from, because a lot of it has been manipulated over even the last 10 years. Because I was on the internet, on Facebook, and in a few other places before they stopped me, and we were doing this far before anyone else had seen the oncoming early onsets of the arrival of the planets, and people are still thinking they're way out, and they're not. They're above our heads right now. I mean, they are so close, it's spooky. But what people don't understand is that we are a part of, it's literally like telling the Arabs tomorrow, well, you can't pump oil anymore. And that's not going to happen. Every cycle, the Earth breaks up and reproduces all of these, the gold, the silver, through tectonic plate displacement, electrical discharges, underground. Volcanoes bring the lava and the gold and everything back up. Now, if you go back through Sitchin and the Sumerians and everything, and if you look at the early Jewish settlements by the Dead Sea, that's where the greatest source of monatomic gold came from. And all of these places, they have these large monolithic stone structures everywhere. And if you measure them at altitude versus sea level, they're all at a certain depth where they would never be covered by water. So that in any cycle of the planet that they would choose to come back, then they would have their landing platforms all in a stable area in order to collect the commodities that we as humans have been designed to collect for them.
Sam, I need to bring this up because what you just mentioned, also, I don't know how familiar people are with, but mathematically, I know you know this absolutely, but all these structures, when they were measured out, they did the qubit, to pi, and actually equaled out to pi exactly. I think it was
and the opposite side on that is
by 1 I think it was 0.1 or 0.2. It was so minute.
And on the opposite side of that equation is phi, Phi.
Right.
And that, with phi and pi, I have a harmonic resonance equation someplace in my notes, and it's probably lost, but it's like 5, 6 pi versus... But anyway, harmonic resonance from the pyramids, I believe to this day that they were broadcast power stations. And you tune your manipulated receiver with whatever power thing that you wanted to run would have the harmonic balancer or collector within the vicinity of these broadcast power stations. Because, like in the properties of I'm trying to think of his name, our famous God, I can't just think of his name, which is stupid. Anyway, he had the power stations, and they sequestered.
You're talking about Tesla.
Tesla, right? Okay, I couldn't think of his name, but anyway,
okay.
Tesla went on to the Earth puts off 235 volts from the ground. If you walk barefoot out, you're receiving Earth electricity, and now that is a stable, non-stop electrical source, and all you have to do is reverse tune your harmonics to receive this thing, and that's what basically a pyramid will do as well. With the great immense pressures of the weight that they stacked upon the pyramid using phi and pi, it creates a harmonic equation that puts off an amplification of Earth existent 235 volts, which is also how you can connect to the human brain and meditation, etc., but that's an entirely another story.
Right. Also, I wanted to mention that most of these megalithic structures are located on ley lines, which I'm going to say that this audience, at least I'm pretty sure, knows that. But those ley lines run parallel to the axiom of the tilt of Earth.
Right.
And because of that axiom of the tilted Earth, it keeps kind of everything in balance, and it also acts, just like you said, as maybe just like a giant capacitor, which, because it's an electric universe, Sam, the Earth is energized because of that.
Right, and if you look at the magnetosphere properties, and you cross-reference standard compoundation, where the transference of protons and neutrons to form a compound, this harmonic upgrade, which is also what's happening between the planets and the Nibiru system right now as well.
You're talking about the Schumann resonance, which is now
right.
Okay, got you.
Okay, because of these additional properties, what we see is an accelerated ability for the protons and neutrons to harmonically, it's called proton proximity likeness identification. It's where the harmonic upgrade of a lower harmonic outputting proton will meet the likeness of a higher accelerating proton, and they join. And that also has to do with a cross-reference of what's going on with CERN and the arrival and the portal of the Norway spiral, et cetera, if you understand any of those things that are going on as well. Not to cause fear and panic, but...
No, I know exactly what you're saying.
Okay, because we at Montana... Go ahead, I apologize.
No, I'm just saying continue.
We at Montana Skywatcher have witnessed, shall we say, extraterrestrial immense orbs and cubes, as well as the planetary arrival of the Nibiru group as well. And that, too, has boiled down to crop circles and old hieroglyphs matching, the last cycle, et cetera, and some Chinese lore, et cetera, which goes back 2 cycles. And all the pieces have come to fit. And, we don't work off of information that's hypothetical. We only work off of proven material that has had documented captures and everything else like this, with cross-referencing of these hieroglyphics and crop circles and everything else. And then we've had, of course, a great debate going on for about 8 years. And so I highly trust our information.
Well, you got what you have is the math and the science behind you. There's a lot of researchers out there, Sam, and a lot of damn good researchers. I have to say this. Some use strictly photographic evidence. Right. Some are using mathematical formulas. It sounds like you are basing everything that you're doing off science, real science.
We couldn't get any decent reports from NASA and all the Sun and all the original satellites that we were all running off of back in 2008 and 2009, where you had direct access, feeds to the satellites and weather and everything, and they've all taken that all away from us, and they keep switching the names on everything, and so our science was being ripped away from us. And we thought, well, okay, we can no longer trust NASA. And then they started dumping out all this false half-truths, and they started talking about the incoming Mercury on one of their announcements. And I would say, wait a minute, excuse me, but wouldn't that be orbiting Mercury? And then we started catching these little glitches. And when they were talking about the Ison comet coming in on one direction of the planet, it's way out here. If you look, everybody stop what you're doing. It's over here. And at the same time, Nibiru was doing its first close pass on the bottom of the planet past Antarctica.
Now, I got you. I totally get you. So break this down for me, because I think because I've heard so much information based on so many researchers on this subject, that I think I'm a little muddled in how this binary system is coming in. Okay, if we have a brown dwarf, okay, there's still going to be orbiting bodies around this brown dwarf.
Okay,
this is what I need to know. Is that correct?
Okay, let me give you a basis. It's if you look at a compound instead of just one atom. Okay, a compound of two atoms, which is binary stars. They are orbiting. The brown dwarf is an electron cluster. It is a massive, 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 fills up half our solar system gas giant. It is a dark brown body. It is not a lit star. It is a central electron cluster that holds the standard red star, which is the star that goes to the Nibiru group, and our yellow dwarf soul. Okay, and those two are currently thread attached with the standard red behind our sun. Occasionally it's on the side, or they might orbit each other. But NASA continues to scrub out that information on all of what they put out. And that's why everything you see is many, many, many hours old, and you never get a direct line feed anymore, because they scrub everything. Okay. Now, it's been sighted at arrival, and we saw that arrival come back up in 2012. And along with it, was Hercubus, the electron cluster gas giant, which is brown, which is why we don't see it. Not only that, we don't see everything in space, because human eyes do not see all of the spectrums of that.
The spectrum is so small, and people don't really realize that.
Birds even see better than us, and the birds have been sitting in the middle of the night seeing the planets that we don't see ourselves. Right. But anyway, when the arrival occurred and the backblow CME started occurring in 2012, and you can look that up, the back energy, and this is why we're having this really weird cycle on the sun that no one understands, is because the standard red is sucking all of the major output energy back to it, because they're thread attached. And they could even be our sun could even be slightly immersed inside of the larger star, but I doubt it. Anyway, Hercubus has been cited as moving over the last 5 years from where it was, which was farther away, and then it came up closer and closer and closer. And what it actually is our solar system has entered theirs, not the other way around, because everybody says, Nibiru, the planet X, and they're thinking of one planet coming here. And it's not. It's not a rogue planet. It's a
system. Yeah.
It's a joining of static electricity between the two atoms, and then they get to a certain stage where then they discharge, and then they separate, but nobody knows how long it's going to be.
It's like Sam, it's like a giant capacitor.
Right.
This is how I'm looking at it. It's
loads and unloads.
The charges, exactly. Load and unload, exactly.
And that, if you go to string theory, all the way down into the subatomic particles, the string opens and closes and opens and closes, and that's how our heart works. That's the same electric pulse that everything that's throughout the entire galaxy is connected to, is that subatomic pulse all the way to the astroatomic pulse. One thing connected.
I got you. So let's okay, because I am a contactee myself. I don't know if BADBABY told you that, but I am a contactee. And
you can elevate it harmonically as well.
Yes.
Proton with proximity likeness identification.
And they love to laugh at me, by the way, when I ask them, because they downloaded me with all this information and said, well, we'll let you know when it's time for you to know. They laugh at me all the time.
Yeah.
You know, they
because
do
how
it
come it's not
purposely.
self-evident to you already?
Right. I like you, Sam. So,
Well, I've done this for a long time.
yeah. So the reality.
I told him the other day on the phone that you were really going to like him.
Yes, she did say that.
Yeah, without a question.
Yeah, you know, it's what I talk about even to my members, and I've got over 10,000 members on Montana Skywatcher, and I deal with a few other sites too. And I basic it down as far as I possibly can, and then they sit there, and some of these people, they feel bad for it, and yes, I do laugh at a few people, but not intentionally to hurt their feelings, of course. But then I get some people that say, "Well, is that the birth of a rainbow?" And I go, "Oh my God,"
Right.
And I feel terrible for the people that have been taught science and that they paid for their education and are still paying for their education, because the information is still basically all the way back to the 1890s.
Yeah.
And no one will allow these people to step on their own free equations, because it's so basically simple. It's unbelievable. And yet all the theorists and the physicists are stacking all these equations piggyback on the top of Einstein, who was wrong. We don't revolve around a dinner plate. We don't stay in the same place year after year in this little tiny solar system all by ourselves.
Never have, never will.
We travel sideways in a co-spiral with a secondary star behind a massive, massive gas giant that moves through virgin space every day.
I couldn't agree with you more, because if we look, nothing is. What is the only thing that is constant in the universe? Change. Without change,
the Mayans and the Aztecs even knew better, because they had direct contact with the demigods as well. If you look back in history at the cycles, it proves all of this is factional, and we're not the first generation of this intelligent people. As a matter of fact, we're pretty stupid.
Not even
compared to the last few. The Greeks knew about the binary solar system.
Oh yeah. As far as I'm concerned, factually, that we were put here many, many millions of years ago, and manipulated and altered through the processes of all these very highly intelligent beings who said, "Hey, let's give these guys a shot." Well,
if you had a backwater factory
with the hominoid species on the planet, and let's give these guys a shot. We've only created 100 million races. Let's create one more.
Well, do you know how many versions there have been of us?
I couldn't even fathom to guess.
Hundreds, if not thousands. And I mean, we can go back.
I believe that.
Looking at the Neanderthal, the reason that the Neanderthal was changed to our generation, when they broke it down into two other species, was because they were smaller and easier to move, to sample and retrieve biomaterials, et cetera, et cetera.
And because of the mental capabilities that weren't that highly developed at the time, they were easily manipulated. Absolutely.
Right.
Take off on a craft, manipulate the DNA, bring them back.
The Neanderthals were great traders of stone. They had huge carts. They brought minerals. They did all sorts of mining. And there's proof of this. Of course, modern science won't allow these summations, because everybody thinks that the Neanderthal was a caveman. And in actuality, they've shown numerous examples of great intelligence and lore and all sorts of things that we ourselves couldn't do to this day.
Well, you're bringing me now to Gogagli Tepe. Excuse me, I'm having a hard time to pronounce the Gogagli Tepe, where we went from spears and arrows living in caves to highly civilized societies. Those things just don't happen. It's not possible unless there is a manipulation of the DNA through a higher form of life in order to give us that intelligence to create.
And you're also bypassing any daily contact with terrestrials, which we did have. And if you go back even to the Greeks in the lores and the legends, they spoke of the Magi. Well, the Magi were also believed to be lizard men. And we know about the Draco race, and we know that there's been numerous others from the Norse and all these other that have infiltrated and mixed into our race and our bloodline as well.
Yeah, 100% correct. I couldn't agree with you more. And yet, on a daily basis, we have reports of all these different crafts, right?
Mm-hmm.
That are in our atmosphere. Planes, pilots are interacting with these things. They're saying, well, it's a UFO, unidentified flying object. Actually, they're not unidentified. We know exactly what they are. Enough with the nonsense, because
Right.
with all this nonsense, especially with this Tom DeLonge character, right? From Blink 182 and whatever to the stars. We're going to release this information from the CIA or Pentagon or whatever the hell it's come from. It's all a bunch of nonsense. They have been here for thousands and thousands of
Correct.
years, manipulating, changing our DNA, enhancing our DNA, making us smarter. I don't know how smart they want to make us, Sam.
Well, there is a promise. There is part of the Galactic Federation has been told from higher beings, because there's even higher races above the demigods that we're dealing with in our immediate region. And there's higher races.
Sam, you brought up the perfect point. You used the word demigod. That's why we have all this religious nonsense on the planet.
Jesus was not, and I was directly told this. I could tomorrow change religion if I actually had the authority and people would listen to me. And I'm not. That's not what I'm trying to do. But the point was, Jesus was not a religious figure sent here. He was a genetic upgrade, and it's been proven in the Dead Sea Scrolls that he had a wife, and he had children, and they had children, and that was part of the Templar secret. They were protecting the family. And that's part of what World War I was about. It was part about what World War II was about. And they're still continuing to hide this information because they don't want people to know that there is a genetic bloodline of Jesus that exists on this planet.
That's right. And on the opposite side of that, the controlling masters, the dark side races, because like you mentioned earlier, and there's good, bad. The question is,
what are you're referring to dark side? There isn't, and that too is an invention of the church, good and evil. What you have to relook at it as factional agenda.
Exactly, and that's what I was getting to. There are certain factions that either want our race to succeed, or they want us to keep us in this manipulated construct that they've created for whatever purposes to feed. Right, it suits them. It feeds them, because as long as they continue they continue to draw the fear from us, they feed from that fear. Which, it's just like going to a feeding trough for them, I guess.
Well, there is a group of entities, shall we say, out there that does actually benefit from negative vibrations and negative harmonies. And yes, there are a group of those out there. Exactly.
So I think that the biggest fear, let me just throw this in here real quick, Sam, that we're breaking away from that time, this thing that they created. We are finally breaking away from it as this shift comes in, because I think the vibratory frequencies coming in from our
talk about the promise.
Go ahead. I know where you're going to go.
I understand. The promise is, and now this is the Galactic Federation, and then the group of entities that are above them have told them, because of our race and because of the fact that we're a blend of 12 other races, but our 24th, which they don't even talk about anymore, our 24th chromosome has been clipped. And that is the harmonic finisher where we can self-heal and where we would live to literally 2,000 or so years old. And it's even spoke about when the people who carried the Ark of the Covenant were around that. What I believe to this day is they had a mini tiny star inside of that, which is exactly what the same technology in the outside of Nibiru has, is they have a facial tool star, which links them to their standard red star so they don't go behind Hercubus to cause an ice age across their planet. And that's why all the Nibiru planets are in alignment. Anyway, I digress. But the point is that they have been told, the overlords or the demigods have been told that because we are the race that we are, and we are learning and growing, that some of us have to have a right to be brought up to standards and living within a membership of the Federation that exists. Some of us are harmonically being elevated to that stage for the upcoming future generations. Now, it's not going to happen within one generation or maybe two, but I'm part of and have been informed of some of that future, that this is going to come in certain steps. And there is the promise that we are going to be able to join the Galactic Federation, which is part of why we've seen Star Wars and why this was introduced to us, so that it can elevate our points of view. Because we have to earn this ascension. It's not free for everybody, because it's like trying to invite your three-legged cousin Larry from the bayou, and I apologize, I didn't mean that in a slanderous way other than just call her Larry, that comes over to your house drunk in the middle of the evening and wants to spend a rousing day playing pinochle. It's really difficult to have an inappropriate person in your lifestyle around you. So they're not going to invite us into their federation until we've earned it.
Yeah, I've been told the same thing, and as many other contactees have been told us, you know what, put away the matches and grow up, and we'll invite you in with peace and love and harmony. That's the bottom line.
That's all you have to do, is not be mean and evil. All you have to do is know that the whole thing is about love.
Well, we put off
like a broken record, don't I?
We put off electrical power out of our bodies. Our hearts are these immense electrical things. Our brain puts off a great deal of electricity, and when they're around us, and I mean, if you live for 2,000 years, you learn an awful lot of stuff in that time. And they go to the bathroom like we do, and they put their pants on like we do, except they live a long, long, long time. And if you had a bunch of drunk cousin Larrys showing up in your apartment on a regular basis, you wouldn't want them around. And so they can't tolerate. We're uncomfortable to be around, and I've met 3 races, and you know, they don't smell so great either, but they have such abilities to read us so fast that it's excruciatingly uncomfortable for them, and that's why we have to grow.
It's instant because they can read every thought that we have,
right?
And every
eye contact, the body language, all of that.
Yes, yeah, no question about it. But what I was alluding to is that the fact that we have been manipulated by all these species who have come here, and here's let me backtrack just for a second.
Sure.
Because we are consciousness inhabiting this physical container called a human body, we have experienced all the things that they have experienced, but we chose to enhance the human physical species on this planet. So we all made a deal, and you can correct me anytime that you feel I'm wrong here, but we chose to come in here to enhance the human condition, the human body, the human consciousness, because it's been time for us to grow out of this.
There's genetic memory within us. We are part of those 12 races, and so we have some of the information connected. They've clipped us and cloned us and shortened us to serve their purpose, but they never expected us to have souls, and it was a surprise to them when we did. They've got us stifled. They've got us kept here. If you believe in reincarnation, that is pretty much basically what's happened. We will reincarnate until we get it right.
That's exactly right. And that's what I was alluding to, Sam, is the fact of the matter is that I think they did understand. You see, this is where I differ. I think they did understand, but creation creates what? It creates consciousness. That's what it is. Consciousness inhabits a physical vessel, so it can have the human or whatever material experience it needs to have in order to expand on its own consciousness. I think they understood that, and by enhancing our species, called humans, they have been able to nurture us in many ways, and others have been, created major detriment.
And there's been good factional changes and bad factional changes.
Yes, absolutely.
And see, this is where the promise rolls in, that they now have to allow a certain percentage of humans to join the higher realms. And so, and to them, it could be even one lifetime cycle, and to us, it's many, many, many generations.
Yes.
And so we have to view that in a different time factor, because we view everything through human eyes, and sometimes you have to step aside that and say, well, okay, in their opinion, what are we? We're a bio tool that they created, and we should be appreciative of our existence, because we would not have existed prior. So therefore, they kind of own us, and in fact, they do own Earth, because this is all a very large chemistry experiment that has been functioning for millions of years, as we spoke of earlier.
But then again, you can say that for them as they were at where we are now. You see, the cycle always exactly. The cycle always continues forward. It's the old thing of, you grow up with abused parents, and then the child grows up to abuse his own children. See what I'm saying?
They do have a sort of a prime directive. And there is a kind of a rule, and this is for any ET, even if he's coming down for cow lip stew. And this is, because there's rogue people out there breaking the rules that fly down here and do stuff they're not supposed to do, but they do it anyway. And there is a rule. It's kind of like prime directive. The rule is that an entity who is awake, a being of intelligence, has the right to exist wherever they are, including them. When they land, they have the right to do what they want to up to a point. But they treat subhumans, people who are not awake, who are controllable, who are less intelligent, as animals, because to them, we are. And so that's where they draw the line on that, on abductions, and then certain people are approached because they see in them the potential.
Well, that's a good point. Hence the abduction versus contactees. That
Correct.
Does make sense in what you're saying. Yes.
Correct. And if you're ever approached by an entity that you're aware of, because half the time your memory is completely being messed with, because they do have there's a tone and a circular light that they use, that once you're within that circular light and tone, you can't move, period. Your brain works, you could scream inside your mind all you want, and nothing in your body functions whatsoever. And that's a built-in stopgap for us, so they can control us and examine us and everything else. And when I had my abduction, they couldn't control me, and they went, "What?" And I sat up on the table on these people, and I said, "Hey," and then because of this, that's when they took me aside and said, "What? Who is this guy?" And that's why they looked me up. And then they took me outside, along with my other 3 friends that were there, and we had this great long discussion where I got the information that I'm running off of today.
You're in a majority. You're in a majority of a few, because the only other person I know that was able to do that was Jim Sparks. Same thing that you just mentioned, that they really couldn't control him. Their activation, whatever lights or whatever they use, or mind control, did not work on him. So you should really get in touch with Jim Sparks if you can, because he went through the same process.
I can't use cell phones. I can't wear watches. If I get angry, electronics around me fry.
Same thing happens to him, by the way.
I have this body electricity, and I can do things. Now, if you'd like to, I'll go into a little bit of that.
Absolutely.
I am what's known as an indigo. I can see things that other people don't see. All my life, I've seen spirits. I've had numerous visitations from different factions throughout my life because of who I am. And you guys get to find this out in the near future. I'll leave it at that, leave you hanging. But I have a very high IQ. I'm good at everything I need to do. But if you check into indigos, we're different people. We see things. I'm of course very hyperactive. I run on very little sleep. I excel in all sciences. There isn't much I can't do.
Yeah, most scientists call you ADD, the false science, of course.
Right. I'm atypical neurosis, where I look at things differently than everybody else. I view everything through subatomic chemistry. Everything. I mean, my entire life is chemistry.
Are you talking, Samuel, about telepathically communicating with
Right,
us?
and now I was just about to go there. What they originally recruited me for was, and now that it's declassified, I can actually talk about it. I was recruited for the Far-Seeing Project, and that is a group of people who got together and did remote viewing in a room, and you did a closed condition where they would bring up the topic, and they would ask you just to look inside your mind and then write down everything on a piece of paper on a legal pad. And then you'd have hand those legal pads in. Now, I was briefly there long enough with them for my little visit that was, shall we say, I didn't give permission for. So we'll leave it at that. And they offered me the job of doing this. I tried it for a while, and I saw things that were beyond the government that they didn't want us to see, and I saw upcoming things that I needed to not be a part of. And so that's when I bailed, and they brought me back several months later back to Montana in handcuffs. And I was branded a dissident, and I did not exist any longer, and I had to go and refile for Social Security numbers and all of that stuff, and they changed all my information. But basically, I've been, branded a dissident, and I can get any federal government job I pretty much want because they still view me as an asset.
I'm surprised that they didn't recruit you for one of the deep dark projects like 51. Area 51.
I helped design, and I'm stepping out in trouble here. I helped design some of the living quarters for the dumbs, and I worked on a couple other projects, and I wasn't comfortable with being sequestered. And
gotcha.
I'm from Montana, and you can't lock me up.
Yeah, no,
I couldn't stay with those people.
Yeah.
And I told them at whatever cost, and then they said, we're going to brand you as a dissident. And, it should be an honor for you to work for the U.S. government, and you're never going to make it in society because of your IQ. You don't fit, and I don't. I do not fit in society. I have had trouble with every employer, every teacher. I've always ended up being the boss before you know it, and it's uncomfortable for a lot of people to be around me in some cases because I am kind of driven in my own opinion. But granted, and I apologize ahead of time, but I am smarter than 90% of the planet.
Why are you apologizing for that?
Well, because it makes other people uncomfortable.
Yeah, but that's on them. That's all ego-based. This is my problem with that alone, Sam. That's all ego-based. If people put their egos aside and understand higher consciousness, reality, what things really are, you let people be who they need to be. You don't admonish them for that. You revere them for that.
Well, unfortunately, our society views people as successful by the money they make.
Big time.
Not by, and it used to be years ago, people were philosophers, and it was actually a revered way of being, and now we don't even have respect for those people anymore.
Yeah, what's a philosopher? Oh, that's a guy in a street corner playing songs on his guitar. That's what they've admonished or reduced a philosopher to, as a guy who's begging for alms on a street corner. This is how society, and especially, it just upsets me to no end. This is how the twisted communistic, Marxist, socialistic view has twisted our society. And they don't even know. These brainwashed morons have no idea how badly they've been twisted and manipulated.
Well, let me ask you a question real fast. I mean, is capitalism correct? Is communism incorrect? Is there a happy medium somewhere in between there that we could re-examine? Is there a way that we could take care of our fellow man and share the gifts that we have on this planet without making a massive profit at the expense of everyone below?
I can sum it up in one word, Sam. Truth is truth, and lies are lies. That's it.
Well, and as Al Gore always said, inconvenient truth or a convenient truth or plausible deniability.
Another manipulative word to inculcate into our society, so the brainwashing continues forward. I'm sorry, I digress.
Let's just hope that the good old boys are done with their BS and we can move on, because those of us who are in our I'm 56 years old, going to be 57. I'm not one of the good old boys. You got me by 5
years. You got me by 5 years.
And it's time for us to start a new way of life, because the way of life that we've created has killed our planet, and we haven't even seen it yet.
Yeah.
Look at the oceans. Look at the water. Look at where people are living and what they're living in, what they're tolerating for noise level. We don't even contemplate the noise that we produce. Look at the air traffic all over this planet. We're killing.
Look at the chemtrails every day.
Right. Well, chemtrails are the least of our worries. What people have to understand about chemtrails is that they're a dual purpose. They protect us from this extra amount of sunlight. All you have to do is look at the UV meters to see that they're twice off the scale.
UVA, UVB, UVC, and UVD now.
And if you do not have, how do you get twice the amount without having an extra sun?
Exactly.
It's basic. And people, they don't even fathom. They just go, "Oh, there's something wrong with our atmosphere." No.
Oh yeah, there's something wrong with our sun. It's brighter. I know it's brighter, but it's all good. But my skin's burning when I'm out in the sun. I don't know why.
In the middle of winter, in 5 minutes. Yeah.
Thank you.
And the Earth is tipped. We know that. We've watched it tip numerous times back and forth. It's wobbling like a son of a gun. The future forecasts for the next month in Europe is going to be unbelievably, outrageously cold. Look at the East Coast that's going on. And that has a great deal to do with Attu's moon currently, which is dipping into our atmosphere, and the object cluster group and all the asteroids that are about to hit us this month.
Yeah, just Washington, what was it, on Tuesday? Big flash, big bang, big shaking. Everybody was freaking out.
I get them daily from around the world. At Montana Skywatcher, I get hundreds of reports every day from around the world that people show me the cool stuff that they found. Now, these pro-am reporters, and I call them pro-am because these guys have learned how to do this, and they've become professionals. Well, these members have turned in comparative science reports without a paycheck, so they're not asking to be paid, so they're not stifling their opinion because the guy above them threatens not to pay them.
Right.
And all these great reporters that work for Montana, and they don't work. I mean, they're members. It's their show. It's not mine. I'm just the guy in the middle that culminates everything. And the reports coming in are showing us that these asteroids are so darn close, and they go by every day. It's not an Oort cloud from Saturn or out to there. It's an independent Oort cloud that's attached to the back end of Saru and Uri and Attu and Nepesity and Isatum, and they're all orbiting in a spiral over the top of us, and they're now passing us. This is the first time the Nibiru group has fully passed us. They came in from underneath four loops. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, for people who don't understand the spiral orbital process of what you're talking about, can you basically draw out a diagram from your mind and basically construct it so they understand what you're saying, that we're not a spiral?
Think of it as a line moving from left to right. The line comes over a couple inches, and then it does this micro little loop, and then it gets closer, and it does a bigger loop, and then it gets closer, and it does a bigger loop. And after 4 cycles, it suddenly started going left to right to left to right, and we're up to 6 now. And we're coming right at where they're going over the top of us as we go underneath them. Now, there's been some aberrations in the orbiting, and I don't fully understand exactly what's going on, but it's almost like we've been dragged or are wobbling and dragging and wobbling and dragging, which has been the behavior of the left and right movement. And as they pass us, this is where all the ion bleed off between the planets and the lights going straight up in the sky and everybody wondering why, and the big dark shadows in the sky and all the red sunsets and purple lightning storms. Well, these are close passes of the planets. They come in, they pass us by. There's a wake eddy that is affected between the planets. There's a thread attachment.
That's that wobble you're talking about. That's that wobble. That's that eddy you're talking about, where as our planet revolves around in that spiral pattern, our sun is also rotating and shifting. It's like, if you could take a ball in your hand.
The sun doesn't really rotate.
Right.
The sun pretty much stays.
But what it does, it wobbles. There's a small shift in order to create that rotational vortexual pattern. It has to happen.
Yeah, well, we're following behind in a static. It's like when you pull a sock out of the dryer, you get 3 behind it. And we spiral on that atomic weight value, and it has to do with subatomic shell structure also. Because of the electrical charge, it will stay within a certain distance of the shell structure, 212, 36, depending on, it's been so long since I looked up shell structure. Anyway, we have a weight value, and that static pull thread attachment that we are attached because we're part of a chemistry equation never lets go. It always holds, but the 2 of them are running together, so now the planets don't crash into each other. They electrically repel each other, and that's why these freak lightning bolt storms all over the planet where, an entire herd of elk were killed by the thousands from one lightning strike. It's because that's a planetary discharge, and we've been seeing evidence of that for literally 5 years, and we've got numerous pictures showing the bottom of these planets striking our planet, and everybody goes, oh, that's just a cloud. Well, these clouds we've been watching all have a base cloud pattern that is the same for each planet, and each time they come in, we have learned to recognize what they look like, because these planets have atmospheres. and they all behave in a certain manner. Now, Ceru has an illuminated open core that has so much debris in it that it's like electrically discharging on the bottom. So the bottom of Ceru is always in this really cool illumination. Nepacity does the same thing. It's got an open core.
Do we know what the chemical makeup of that is, or do you have a summation of what it may be?
I've been making some assumptions. Now, I'm guessing because the planets have different colors. Now, we've talked about, everybody believes that Nibiru is red, and Nibiru is not a red planet, and they're all talking about the iron oxide ore.
Right.
The planet is Saturn is red. It's quite big compared to Atu and Nepacity. Nepacity is much smaller than this Saturn. And it has 3 moons, from what we understand. Now, the yellow moon of this Saturn is very close spatially to the planet, and there's this ion bleed off that goes around, and a lot of times you'll see the yellow moon, but you won't see a Saturn except the wings behind it, and that's the winged ion bleed off between this planet.
Now maybe that is. I'm sorry to interrupt, Sam, but that's maybe what Dave Dobbs has been witnessing. On a trajectory and path that he's been able to calculate and see and project certain times when this object would be visible. So that kind of makes sense to what you're saying.
The right of the sun it was over the top of the sun about 2 years ago, and it was on the left of the sun about 3 years ago, and it was literally close to Earth about 4 years ago. And of course, I've got documentation of I've got drawings, and everybody teases me over my drawings because I use crayons, but it works. And when you have kids around, you never have a pen. But anyway, we have watched where all the planets have been going. Now, I believe that the Saturn is like an iron, and Nepacity is yellow, is very green, and has all these volcanic openings that are illuminating all the time. We believe that's like a greenish copper, and Atu is purple, and it's a gas giant also, but it's a smaller gas giant than Uri. And Nibiru is dark blue because it's got deep oceans and land masses, which we have pictures of. And Ceru is a light green blue, and it's 5 times the size of Earth, whereas Nibiru is supposedly 7. And Ceru's oceans are less deep, and that's why we've seen mostly green-blue and very little land masses, but you can see some land on some of the shots.
Okay, I got you.
Stunning, really, I know, it's jaw-dropping.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. Okay. I just had to let my cat out. I'm sorry. I lost my concentration for a second.
Well, as long as we don't bore the listeners, I got no problem with it.
Let me ask a question real quick. What you're saying then is that the planet that everyone's calling Nibiru is blue instead of red.
Right, and it is currently on the right-hand side of the sun, and it is so massive most times all you're doing is seeing nothing but dark blue sky.
Right, and and this is the interesting thing. I just posted a video, I don't know if you've seen it on my Facebook page, that of a man in Texas who just videoed that 2 days ago on the right-hand side of the sun, and it was blue.
Right, dark blue, whereas the sky is yellowish, orangish at the horizon.
Yeah, exactly. And there was also a scientist going back, he remained nameless to this day, Sam, but he was able to use an astronomical, telescope to, and I'm talking about within our solar system, to exactly take a photograph or multiple photographs of this object, which had let's say dark stripes. I want to say grayish, blackish stripes with this bluish, with this blue. This thing was huge, with a blue circumference going all around this thing.
Right, and that's an illuminated atmosphere.
Okay, all right.
When light is in space, it does not break down to a visible state until it refracts through a gaseous form, thus creating the prism effect. And that's why we see an atmosphere around these things. And for everybody who's seeing the upside-down rainbows right now, there's no such thing. You're seeing the bottom of a planet with the sunlight at an angle shining through its lower atmosphere.
Okay.
We're getting continuous sightings of the OCG, which is the lead object of the main asteroid group that goes by just about every day. It comes closer, it gets farther away, it gets closer, it gets farther away, and that has to do with orbit and away week. We do a wobble out, and then we come back in, and they go over the top of us as we rotate to them, and we see them. And then when we're staring out at night, we're staring away from them because they're between us and the sun. And we only see the dark side of the back of them and only some occasional crescent illuminations. Whereas recently, since the turn of the year, since December, we've been watching Attu's moon come in, and it's been so close to Earth that it's actually illuminating underneath the light angle as the sun shines underneath these passing planets. And the object cluster group illuminates, and Attu's moon illuminates, and this week we've seen illumination of the bottom of Nepesi, which is on the right-hand side, as well as Nibiru, which is also on the right hand, and Isatum, which is just at the corner between the two of those next to the sun, which is where all the red's coming from.
And you also said today on the phone that we have a debris field, too, that's in there somewhere.
Right, and that's the asteroid, smaller debris that hangs out from behind. It's even in Revelations where the asteroids in Wormwood was all placed back away from Nibiru. Nibiru runs first, and now in my videos they call Nibiru Planet 6, but it's not. Nibiru runs first, Ceru runs second, Uri and Attu orbit on the right-hand side of Ceru, whereas Isatum and Nepesi and Matim all orbit on the back left-hand, and those are the dragging, tailing debris things, and all the debris fields that are coming close to Earth right now.
So which is the nearest orbiting body that will affect us the most?
Currently it is Attu and Nepesi because they're doing a daily pass. Now you've seen those East Coast patterns where these rotational storms that are crossing darn near every day from the south and going to the northeast across the United States. That is Attu's moon dipping into our ionosphere and stirring things up, and it creates a tail-like effect on the bottom of these planets. We call it base cloud. And that base cloud is where the 70 and 150 mile an hour winds are coming from. As these close passes, it's a wake eddy that is affecting our atmosphere. And we've even had pictures of it come in on radar, and they're blurbing it out, and they're cutting it. And on the onset of Uri every day, we start into this whiteout pattern where all of a sudden it's a beautiful day, everything's blue sky, and then before you know it, bang, we're covered in white clouds. And it's real gray and very dim looking. And some people are seeing the square sun, and some people are seeing a triangular sun because there's cutoff between the light that we're seeing and the planet edges, and that creates this what we call a cutoff flare, where it's this enlargement of the overall sun effect because it's rounding the planets and creating a cutoff flaring. And you can see the direction of the light emissions as well, outlining the planets all the time. Anybody that comes to my site, they'll see. We'll give 1,000 examples of that.
All right. So I guess my question next would be: is how bad are the effects going to get? I mean, we're obviously seeing, the Earth's magnetosphere going haywire. We've seen the jet stream go haywire. And they say, well, we go through these solar maximums, solar minimums, and I always ask the question. Cycle. Right. I always ask the question, well, what's causing it? What causes this to happen?
Well, there's the close passes, and we've seen evidence of that in our magnetosphere as well, where all these aberrations that are completely off the scale that, of course, they've been scrubbed down, and that's why they're putting out random computer-generated models rather than actual pictures. And that's why the weather has gone to that, even on all the newscasts and everything. They've taken away radar feed, and now they're putting up drawings because they don't want you to see what's really happening. What's the best way to look at this is to go back through history, right at the beginning of the Bronze Age and the end of the Mycenaean period, 3,600 years ago, and you can see what had the Mount Vesuvius, the sinking of Atlantis, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to see very large tectonic plate shifts. We're going to see the oceans come out of their basins. We're going to see Earth wobble, possible pole shift once the planets let us go. When they leave, we may roll once they let us go. We don't know what the magnetic effects on the planet are right now. We do know that the magnetic north is off a full 10, 11 degrees right now. And there comes to a point where, like the little Scotty dogs, you back the little Scotty dog up to the other Scotty dog, the little game we used to have with magnets, and that dog, the other dog, rolls over. Now, that could still yet happen from a close pass. I don't have the future of when the close passes are going to occur because I'm still winging it day by day. But
right.
The tectonic breakup has to happen every cycle because the Earth has got to rekindle all of these commodities, including gold, gems, diamonds, you name it. And in order to do that, we need tectonic breakup and volcanic activity, bringing the center compounds from the center of the Earth up to the surface where we, its workers, will mine it. So it's also culling of the herd, reduces the number of people they have to deal with here. We go back to a pre-Stone Age era. After a period of time, all the stuff that we've got on top of the planet will rust and rot away and be buried by space dust, which is where dirt comes from. And
where they've all uncovered all the megalithic giants of the past, in which has all been locked up in the Smithsonian, by the way. And also they found live giants, which our militaries battled in Afghanistan, from what I understand. So the past wasn't wiped away completely, but just hidden or minimized to a certain extent that these megalithic creatures still exist.
In an effort to control the genome and all of the secrets they can use to militarize everything. Yes, I know. Yeah. They're manipulating. And the problem is the people who think that they're in charge are not. And it's and if they're out there listening to me today, their time is limited because there's no way they're going to beat the system. The system is going to go around them because they're a joke. And what they're trying to keep us in fear is, by doing this, is they're trying to keep us believing that they have more power than they do, because they don't.
I agree with you.
They're playing foobar. They're trying to play catch up.
I agree with you.
They're not 100%. So smart, and they're going to get mad at me for saying this because here I'm sticking my foot out there where they may step on it. But they're not going to win. I saw that. Many other people around me have seen it, and I was told that. And this is part of why I'm here to talk about it up to the point that I have. And I've introduced information as carefully as I can, and I haven't told everybody everything yet, but that's for afterwards when people are standing across the fire from me after the shit hits the fan.
Right.
And I'm up here in Montana, and when I'm standing across the fire from them, I'll tell them the rest of the story.
I think they probably already know the rest of the story.
Let's hope, because we all have the information within us. It is in genetic memory. All we have to do is trust ourselves to believe. Because everybody can do this. Everyone can learn to Farsi, because this is the time that we can all grow. It's now.
Yeah, and that's the point I was going to bring up, is that we're seeing a huge awakening taking place worldwide right now. It's planet-wide.
Right. Well, the second sun, and the ETs are here for that too. They're getting harmonically upgraded as well.
Yeah,
there's a grand ascension, a living.
So we
ascension.
see this. We see this magnetic attraction and repulsion. I understand how you put this earlier. So as this magnetic attraction and repulsion electrical system helps us awaken, it awakens because we are, electrical beings. As you said earlier, we're 80% water, whatever, 90% water. Well, water attracts electricity like nobody's business. So we're seeing a mass awakening taking place on the planet, yet the control construct still wants to maintain its control. I'd like to get your take on what your friends from upstairs have said and how this all plays out.
Well, they're going to go into their little holes, those people who have the money and have been sequestering everything, the multi-billions of dollars and all our family vacations for the last 40 years, money-wise. Why we now have to have 2 employees in every family working 3 jobs in order just to pay for them.
That's right.
Their greed ratio is so huge, it's unbelievable. And they're going to crawl down in their little holes, and they're going to think that they're going to control shit, and they're going to find out different, because what the average standard good old boy, we'll leave it at that, thinks is they're going to be in charge later. And we have to share the planet next time with others. and they don't want to know that.
They don't like to share, is what you're saying,
they don't,
basically.
and they're going to find out different because they don't own it, even though they think they do.
Yeah, well, the only thing we own is our consciousness. That's the thing that they don't understand.
Right.
What you take with you on the other side, what you bring back every time is an expansion of your consciousness, and an enhancement of your understanding of your higher conscious mind to expand and create and grow and keep expanding. That's how this universe becomes multi-universe.
And when they pass on to that other realm, the one that's just the other side of us, they're going to find some really nasty green guys with some really nasty teeth and they don't have feet, they have little tails. And I've seen them. I've done shamanic rites, and I've walked the world of the dead back in '97 during the comet thing, and all of that. I was aware of some great things that occurred during that. And when they meet those guys, they're not going to have a great time. So those people who think that almighty dollar is going to do them a lot of good ain't going to do them squat later. They're going to find out just how
I personally think, Sam, I think personally the dollar's dead anyway. I mean, the whole fiat, monetary scam is ready to implode in and of itself. So, I mean, we're watching the beginnings of this collapse take place right now.
Yeah,
so it's not going to do a whole hell of a lot of good for them.
No, and if you got it on paper in some bank, it ain't going to do you a lot of good when you're standing there and the power just shut off permanently.
Yeah, without a question. I mean, preparedness is number one. I mean, we're going to definitely face some tough times. I've said many times, Sam, you can agree or disagree with me on my thoughts here, but I said, everything's, we're going to do this, 180-degree pole shift. And I've told people, look, if we even shifted 15 to 20 degrees, there wouldn't be a micron left on this planet. It'd be void of life. It'd be over.
Well, that's only if you have a major, blast in the upper atmosphere or something, or a major asteroid hit. I think we've got something. I think we got another Charlie Benz coming soon. If not, because if you look back at the last cycle during the time of Moses, one of the plagues was millions and millions of 75-pound asteroids coming in, and they were all flaming by the millions.
Oh yeah.
And that was the last cycle. So, I'm still expectant of this. And like I've been telling people, I'm not trying to freak you out, but boy, by God, you should buy a little extra rice and coffee and sugar and that sort of stuff, because next month, or this month we're in right now, the pages of the NEO listings are off the charts. Usually there's 2 or 3 or 20, but we're talking page after page after page of incoming stuff that they're talking about openly. Now, what about the rest of the stuff they're not talking about? And we see this. We saw an event about a week and a half ago where something came between the Earth and the Moon, and it was so big it left a trail across the planet, and we've got numerous pictures of it from around the world. This was not a chemtrail. This was a massive asteroid passing right by Earth, and we've got pictures of it, and it goes by every day, and it's got.
And I think
all the booms.
What's that?
I mean, just 2 days ago, there was like 4 places that at the same time. I think it was South Carolina, Texas, Oklahoma, and I
saw one the other day. I saw one up here in Montana.
Had like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. People woke up with the big booms, their house shaking.
Portland, I've got reports from Ireland, I've got reports from England, I've got reports from France and Portland and Washington State, and they're coming in, and they're coming in more frequency. And of course, the NEO lists are shutting down, and the weather sites are shutting down. They're closing off the information to keep us from panicking.
Yeah, keep us in the dark. Yeah.
Well, if we screw up their plans, and they've got all those routes laid out for the military and the camps, we don't even want to get into discussing publicly because that'll get us on a list and a free 50-cent bullet.
Obviously, they don't want me out here doing these shows because they have taken my share button off of my site.
Yeah, well, I'm having troubles on my Facebook site again. All my messaging is down. I can't open my email for many years now. My IP is flagged. My Skype doesn't work. Nothing works.
A lot of the stuff that Robert Evans, he called me this afternoon, that he has been posting or I have been posting. They've been taking it down off of our pictures that we're putting up, videos.
Well, you and I were on the phone the other day. We got disconnected twice.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it's just like they don't want us telling the truth, and I think it's because they're afraid that people will panic. But
no, I followed my non-disclosure agreement.
I feel the same way you feel, Samuel. People have the right to know that times are going to get hard, and they need to supply their home with food for their children and their family.
Right. You need to buy those little things that you know, and only buy stuff that you use. Don't buy stuff you don't use, and make sure it lasts on the shelf. Because I've done that. I've experienced cans of food going bad on me because I bought stuff that I don't use. And then I go, oh, boy, this is 5 years old.
Hold on, Sam, just really quick. Most of the stuff that you buy in a can will actually survive for a better part of 20 years. They put those expiration dates on those cans, or those product cans, so you throw those out and go out and buy.
I understand that, but I'm talking about when the can finally decides it's done and then it starts leaking on something.
Yeah, well, that's
acidic, Robert, like tomato paste. Tomatoes.
That's why you avoid buying the dented can, because then there's a fault in it that it can get into, and it decays and breaks. And then you got fruit flies on your.
I mean, canned vegetables is good.
Yep.
But if you buy tomato paste, that only lasts a year or a year and a half.
Yeah, after 2 years, you're like getting ready to poison yourself. There are certain things you have to prepare for: dried foods, different eating styles. Water is hugely important. Soaps, medicines, disinfectant. I'm not a doer of inoculations because I know that I couldn't keep my IQ as high as it is if I let them give me shots. I can tell you that, because there's so much bad stuff in there. It's just calcifying your pineal gland and all of this other stuff.
Oh yeah. And let me throw this out there really quick, because you mentioned this gigantic rock going by that you photographed. I'm thinking that these SOBs have been lying to us, and the larger rocks like Apophis are much closer than they're actually telling us. And could it be would that be something like Apophis that they've been lying about for years, saying, 2029, that's, if it misses the keyhole and it doesn't, go through, then it's going to crash in, or if it's not going to be, then it'll be 2036. I think they're lying through their damn teeth. That's all they've been doing. Remember when Google cut out for, 5 years over one portion of space that nobody could look at? Yeah. And that was so you could tell that, because we judged that the Pleiades moved in an excruciatingly unnormal pattern. And all of a sudden 1 year it was where it was supposed to be, and then the next year it was all of a sudden in the north. And it didn't match any of the other star patterns, and we're going, huh? And what they were trying to do was hide. Now, some of the earlier cameras back in about 2008, 2009, you could point it up into space, and you would actually see the incoming reddish Nibiru red star and its little planets, in which a lot of pictures did get captured, and we run off a couple of them, and which has helped us identify the planet group and match the information I was given to information I have found. And then when those two came to pass after 2.5 years of watching that, yes, this stuff matches, that's when we ran with the Nibiru names. I get that a lot of people ask me, where do the names of these planets come from? Now, a lot of people call them Harrington and human names that were given to the Harrington group who were studying them from SETI Alpha down in the Antarctic, in Australia and all of that. And they ran off of my information of my planetary count, and I was told that by other scientists. But anyway, they've known about this. They don't really fully understand how it works because they're not willing to buy into the electric universe, because a lot of their little pea brains can't fathom it. Now, to me, it's basic. I mean, it can't be anything else. But the point with it is that these cameras could film a lot of stuff that were coming in, and they took them away. They banned them, saying, well, there's something wrong with them. And they fear people into thinking that they're, going to be getting sick. But there's no way that they could be doing as much stupid stuff without it actually being intentional. I'm sorry, unless that group of people is so unintelligent that they're willing to put the detriment of the human society down to nothing, these people cannot be that stupid. They can't be allowing our world to degrade in the manner it is unless it's planned.
And it's a sad
I
thing.
agree with I agree with you. I mean, it's all been pre-planned. Yeah, you're talking about Aldous Huxley and you know,
it's not global warming, and it's all of the planets. We've watched this since 2008, 2009. The exterior and interior temperatures of all the planets have been heating up because there's a second sun here.
And that's right. And I remember that going back to 2012. I remember that reading and looking into it in 2012, saying, "What the hell's going on with the planets? They're all heating up. You know, their orbits are shifting. Their physical tilt is shifting. You know,
right.
what's causing this?
And
of course,
all the planets
mainstream,
tilted.
you got nothing.
Yeah, all the planets tipped, and that tells you that there's a thread attachment that is grabbing one of the poles, either the North Pole or the South Pole of the planet, and that's what tips the axis. And it doesn't have anything to do with Einstein's dinner plate, because it's rolling, and then you go to this dark matter that's supposedly pulling, which is a complete joke, because dark matter is that which does not refract light, and what in the world doesn't refract light, but something that takes it in, which would mean life. So there's life in space. There's space whales, there's space plankton, there's all kinds of beings out there that are just beyond our even wildest dreams, because space is not a void. It's a liquid. It's a gas. And when the planets go by, all this electrical stuff creates ion bleed off between the planets, and that electrical discharge puts helium and oxygen and carbon and all the stuff together at a higher rate because of this electrical discharge, and that's where we're coming up with the space water around the planets, and why we're getting a year's rain in an hour.
Right,
and
that's one of the things. That's one of the things that's always bothered me about when they talk about space and matter. Antimatter, matter. It's not matter. It's frequency. It's waves.
Right, and there can't be something without something.
Exactly.
Their properties are all based off of Einstein, and Einstein is wrong, and Newton was wrong. Gravity is a two separate forces. It's centrifugal force and electrical thread attachment. And that has to do with the ratio. You break down the math between the two, and that is what you could call a gravity effect. But gravity is not what Einstein portrayed it to be, that we're being rolled like a little ball into the center of a gravity well, and yet there's this unknown force that holds us back. Well,
didn't they push that in the Cosmos series. Remember that?
Yeah,
everybody was locked synced into that.
It's shell structure count. You cannot, being what you are, break out of your shell, because your electrical placement keeps you there. And the two masses of the two separate solar systems are going to stay unified, and they'll bump into each other, and they'll displace each other a little bit, but they're still staying mostly stable. Otherwise, it would be a schizoid in the compound, and it would never last for millions of years, as we know it does. Yeah. So it's basic, the old Sherlock Holmes statement: when you've eliminated all the other possibilities, no matter how crazy what's left, it still has to be the answer.
And I love that, because they use that in Star Trek all the time. Now, one of my favorite all-time, TV series and movies, by the way, because at least they use some sort of logic in creating that show.
Which is also an upgrade for us to get us to start thinking and to start moving toward that knowledge that there's a lot more, because what they've got us kept into right now, and if you take your average, and I apologize to anybody if I may insult them, your average simpleton, this person who cannot understand too much, and they're living their life and they're struggling their butt off, and all of a sudden you hand them a big plate of something they can't deal with, they lose it. So we've got to approach them slowly and bring them up, and that's what I've been attempting to do for the last 8 years.
Well, there's been so many people out there talking about the same thing we're talking about, yet albeit with a different frame of reference, different point of view. But the one thing that is undeniable in all this is that we're seeing the changes take place before our eyes. That's the one thing that's undeniable. And
if you understand what's happening.
Right.
If you don't, it's confusing.
Exactly. And this is my point. And I say to anybody who is observing the changes that are taking place now and know that something is out of whack, you can do something about it now. Like you said earlier, stock up on supplies that you need, because you don't know how long or how how detrimental this change could actually be. If the oceans do come out of the basins, gravity takes an effect. There's a gravity play here. We're not talking about, forget that nonsense of the movie 2012, which is absolutely ridiculous by all the stretch of the imagination. If the oceans come out of their basin, they come in 100 miles, okay? That's an incredible distance for water to come in. But we all remember what happened in 2011 in Japan, right?
Right.
And that was what? Some of that water coming out of the basins was 10 meters, 100 feet.
Right, and
look at how
it's
far
projected to be 300-mile high tidal waves.
Right.
And come in 300 miles.
Right.
But you've also got to take into account that even these passing planets can grab hold of an entire continent, and if you have because the elevation of the temperature of the inner core of Earth has created floating tectonic plates because they've broken loose, because they've melted. Now they're floating, and now there's been evidence that Africa, within the last 3 years, has moved 77 kilometers south. And there's evidence of this. I've seen the evidence, and it's just like, wow, you can't argue with the fact the Mediterranean Sea has gotten miles and miles larger.
Well, look, I'm not going to disagree with you. I would simply say with anybody with a GPS system, with an accurate GPS system, that's been in effect for, let's say, the last 5 years, that you could actually record if you have some sort of GPS recording device.
But they keep resetting everything.
Well, that's a good point. You're right.
If you're running off of military information and they're correcting their military and their boys, they're gonna have a subtext available for us, but they're not going to have the absolute information. This was documented by satellite footage.
But Sam, it was just like when they relocated the runways in Florida. That was one of the few things that they actually reported on, which was factual. But that's been happening worldwide, and it's continuing to this day, that they had to, renumber the runways because, the actual magnetic shift has taken place. So the GPSs were off. Right. And if the planes were going to try and land, they wouldn't actually land on the runways, they'd land on a field. And of course, we would know what happened at that point. So, things are definitely happening. There's no question about it. So, if Africa's actually shifted that much, my God,
we also know that the seismic meters have been turned down twice, if not three times. Because I, over the years, have looked at what a 5.0 earthquake looked like on the graph, and now what they're calling a 5.0 is roughly a 7 or 8. And what they're calling an 8 is roughly a 10, and it's ringing around the Earth 3-4 times and covering every meter on the planet. And
they've downgraded it by 1.5 points. And everybody needs to know, when we say 1 point, and I know you know this absolutely, 1 point is 100 times. Okay, it's not 1 point. It's 10
and then you go to a 2, and then that's 10 times 10 times that.
Exactly. So I just wanted to let people know. We're talking about the devastation, like, you hear a 7.5, that is a massive earthquake.
There's readings continuously being published on the sites that says it's a minus 0.3 or a minus 1.2, and it's like, excuse me, how does it go to the minus chart if it's an earthquake, unless that's the only way that the computer is allowed to differentiate that it's actually gone to this level of the scale, and you can't have a minus 1.2 earthquake, and which proves that they've completely screwed it up, and that's why they don't even publish many of those anymore.
I also surmise, remember when we had that deep earthquake which they supposedly registered at 800 miles deep? Mm-hmm. And I think it was in Russia with Kamchatka. I think I can't be positive, but it said it was 800 miles deep. I don't think they were lying about it being 800 miles deep. What I think was the inner core was starting to seep out and displace our crust. And because that wasn't the only one that happened.
If you look at the cracks of Mars, and you look and these passes, and we know that Mars burned off electrically. Yeah, half the atmosphere burned off, And now it could have been an atomic strike or an asteroid
I'm
strike or a
with the
planetary
atomic
strike.
I'm going to go with the atomic strike because of all the info that I've learned about it. But, you know, everybody can think what they want.
But if you follow
research.
electric scarring on planets from electrical scoring, which is what they believe the canals on if you go to the Thunderbolts project, they believe that the canals were created by electric discharge, which is what created the cracks. Now, if you look on Earth in Bilibino, Russia, that whole landscape is very, very similar to that, where there's electric scarring going all over Bilibino, Russia, in these immense wilderness mountain range. Just I would love to even go there just to see what it looks like because I love geology. But anyway, you can see evidence of repeated electrical scarring all over the Earth, which also proves close paths and discharge and repulsion. And if you look at Velikovsky and all of his paperwork, because I read that back in the 70s, and I totally agreed with about 90% of what he had to say, including the planet Titan and the breakup. And you could view that also as a change in the chemistry experiment to set up Earth as the factory. It's because the ET populace has such technology where they know that they can manipulate planets and stars and chemistry compounds and they can create the commodity. See, because gold has a property to it that it's positively charged, and you show me any of the other metals that non-radioactive.
Thank you for saying that.
That non-radioactive positive ionization, gold actually radiates a light, and people they go, "Oh, look, it's beautiful." No, but it actually radiates a light on its own. And then that's why. Go ahead.
Sam, I remember a Russian scientist, and this was on local news here in Phoenix. This must have been about 15, 20 years ago. And I think it was, taken from one of the larger, news organizations, but this filtered down through us, and I watched this on TV. I watched this Russian scientist take silver and gold pellets. He had them in this, like, what it would look, I guess you'd describe as like a small sandblasting chamber where you would sandblast a piece of metal, right?
A containment chamber.
A containment chamber. He had these gold and silver pellets in there, and they were actual gold and silver with an air blowing system underneath it where it would mix these silver and gold pellets at a very high rate of speed. Okay, he actually put a radioactive piece of the element within the silver and gold pellets as these things were, these pellets were being
a free
blown around.
Electron.
That's right.
He added a free radical electron to it,
and within five seconds, he turned it on, turned it off. This piece of irradiated aluminum was completely free of radiation. Now, where the hell did that go to? Why?
Well, what happens in proton and neutron displacement? What happens is when you jam them all together, that creates an accelerated ionization. Protons and electrons start trading places. Now, this radioactive material has a paradox in it, and it is breaking down. And each time a radiation, say, for instance, you have cesium-213, and you leave it out for a certain period of time, and it breaks down radioactively at a semi-calculable rate. Well, once this cesium starts to break down, what it does on the subatomic scale is it releases these electrons that break away from the structure. Therefore, the compound is, in effect, stabilizing itself to a non-paradoxal compound. And then that radiation breaks free in an electron that is a free radical electron that wanders freely from the orbitation process of the chemistry compound's electrical attachment.
And what you mean by non-paradoxal, you mean it basically neutralizes...
It becomes a stable compound.
Okay, all right.
Okay, and that's the difference between if you make, for instance, C-17, whatever, and you have a radioactive material. The reason they're radioactive is because they're breaking down because their atomic structure is not balanced. It has one negative proton extra or two positive protons extra. There's something in the equation that doesn't fit. And so it throws off that electron. It becomes a free radical electron, and that's radioactive decay. And those free-flying electrons have to go someplace, and the gold and the silver absorb it, and that takes away the radioactive.
It was amazing to me. It was amazing.
Yeah. Well, I imagine that ET has the capacity to nullify our radioactive material. Let's hope and pray, because if this power on this planet goes off and we don't have then we're going to lose containment of what, 20,000 or so, or 10,000 radioactive containment chambers that should never have been turned on in the first place.
That's right. We'll all be glowing in the dark. Without exception, I agree with you 100%. I mean,
we in our genetic material, where every atomic blast this planet has ever seen is now inside of us. Period.
That's right. 6,000 of them, to be precise. By the way,
so
most people think, most people think that we blew off a couple of atomic bombs. No, 6,000 nuclear tests on this planet. 6,000.
And they should never have done one. Ever.
That's right. Because including what they did to those poor Japanese people.
And I want to talk about CERN. What they did at CERN is, and they're still doing, and they don't tell the public, is they keep having these malfunctions they don't understand.
Yeah.
And if I was over there and they were paying me a whole lot of money, I would give them the answer, because it's simple. They're sending a proton particle at a high rate of speed, at faster than light speed, and it gets there before they turn the machine on. And then when they turn it on, it goes zorch and fries. The last time they blamed a weasel. Well, that wasn't a weasel. What happened is your particle got there before you sent it, because you sent it faster than time, and it arrived with some friends, some other particles, and it doesn't like that. And I'm amazed. I watched their process, and they have yet to determine that their containment unit is letting protons and neutrons fly complete.
I'm going to play the devil's advocate really quick here, and I'm going to be the head guy at CERN saying, Sam, you are full of BS. How can it get there before we even turn the machine on?
Because you're sending it faster than the speed of light. And when you send it into another dimension and it knocks 3 or 4 other protons from other dimensions back into our dimension, what kind of energy capacity do you have to contain that? You don't.
Good point.
And this, you know how the Stargate system works on the movie Stargate?
Oh, yeah. The Stargate
all the markers,
movie, yes.
And they're looking for that 7th marker?
Yeah.
Okay, what they did when they turned on CERN, now there's 2 of them that we know of. There's the Texas Collider, and then there's the Hadron Collider in Germany, right? Or Sweden, Scandinavia, wherever the hell it is up there. Now, the first time that they used the CERN in Germany, or in Europe, they sent a particle into another galaxy. When that particle came back, it brought other particles with it. Now, once you have a particle from one dimension meet a particle from another dimension, those 2 particles, which as we talked about earlier, is proton proximity likeness identification, meaning when the 2 particles meet, they harmonically vibrate at the same tone. Even across, if you were to take them away from each other and put them across time and space, they would
just really quick, even if they're based on a higher frequency level. In other words, if we are in the 3rd dimensional plane and we are vibrating at 3D, let's say that particle was brought into 4D, and the 3D brings back the 4D. It is the same particle, neutron, electron, whatever. Because they're vibrating at a different frequency, would they still vibrate at the same energy?
The lower vibrating harmonic proton or neutron would elevate, and then there is an internal connection to wherever it came from forever.
So there's a neutrality going on?
Wormhole thread connection.
Okay.
And that is how the Empire Orb came through from another galaxy, say the Delta Quadrant or whatever you want to call it, how they got here through that harmonic thread attachment by bringing the 7th marker connection. So they have a path to follow for their destination point.
I got you.
The Norway spiral opened up in 2009, And the orb came through early before the rest of the planets got here so they could monitor the pickup and delivery of Earth's commodities by the people in charge. And they're here now.
Okay, guys, we got a guest that called in, Huggy Bear, and I think she has a question. Huggy Bear, you have a question?
Oh, yeah, thanks. Sam, I've been following you on Facebook for several years now.
Good, I hope you enjoy the material.
Thanks. I just want to thank you for I'm sincerely, I can't thank you enough. I have been seeing these huge planets, I mean massive, and you know what I mean. I've heard you in your videos. Oh my God. I mean, I can look out at any time and see them.
Yep.
And I drive like from cities to the mountains and back, and when you get up in it, I mean, I see them everywhere, and
I see them on TV and the commercials. I can tell you what year the movie was filmed by where they sit.
Yeah,
I memorized all of this stuff.
They were interviewing a lady the other day, live, up northeast where they had a lot of flooding at the ocean. And they're interviewing her, and she's standing in front of the ocean, and in back of her is a huge planet. Huge.
Right. Attu's moon has been sighted for ever since literally the turn of the year, and it's come in closer and closer and closer and closer. And it's so dark, and it's so big, and it's so close. It's like a floating city attached to a balloon right above us. And people, they can't fathom that. They can't fathom that body could be that close to us. And yet, because it's a structural electrical, we don't crash into each other, and because everybody's mind brewed to believe that they would, well, if they were that close, we'd be dead, and I hear that all the time. Well, what was your question? I'm sorry, I could talk forever.
You had met when I called in late, and I called in just as you were talking about the meteors coming down this month. Could you elaborate on that again?
Some people call it, NASA calls it the asteroid pack. Of course, they gave its location wrong, and they were telling us it was in a different place. But they did talk about it because they love to explore their findings and keep up their funding, but they're not going to tell us where it is. But anyway, we could call it the Object Cluster Group because that's what we refer to it here at Montana Skywatcher. Or you could call it Quetzalcoatl, you could call it Apophis, you could call it Wormwood. But this group of asteroids that orbits underneath Attu, Nepesity, and Uri are coming by every day. And when these planets are in close paths, that means that these objects, these asteroids, and there's millions of them, we have numerous pictures of them, and debris and large stuff and small stuff, planetary size stuff, you name it. When they come in, they put off this rainbow hueing. And because the sun is refracting, the light is refracting through the dust and the debris. And if you keep looking around the sun currently, you'll see this rainbow hueing either to the lower left or crossing in the face or crossing to the right now. There's these bright objects that are showing through right next to the sun. These asteroids are close, and I think we're going to get pasted by a whole bunch of stuff this month, literally. Yeah. And I'm not trying to cause a bunch of fear and doom and gloom, but I want people to be aware that we should really pay attention to what's happening because it could be now. And I view it as a slow train wreck of events, from tectonic breakup to climate, drastic climate change, where suddenly, the people that used to be able to grow crops here now can't because it's turned into a desert, and vice versa, where a desert is now turned into a moist region because of planetary changes. I urge people to be ready for another Chelyabinsk right now. We should be getting, and they've been coming in all week, and it's from the 13th. From the 13th through the 24th is the greater cluster of them all coming in. So what they're telling us and what may really be happening is two different things, I'm sure.
I've been researching into, I'm like you guys, I guess I'm a contactee. I came into this world with, I always thought I was cursed. My late husband thought they were gifts where I could just read people, just glance, I could look at. Is it? I mean, I don't know if you get what I mean. Like I could go in a grocery store.
Normal people tagging you with a name to put you down to stop you from doing what you can do. I have been held. I've seen ghosts all my life. I've heard the whisperers all my life. I have entities visit me because I have this. You're attractive to them because you have this harmonic output that it draws them in because they're dead and they're bored and they want somebody to pay attention to them. Now you probably end up with a lot of ghosts in your home pictures, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
and that's they're drawn to you.
The 70s was really active, and
Right,
then
right.
since 9/11, it's picked up again a lot.
Yeah, well, that's because now spirits are. It's like when you see will-o'-the-wisps. Well, that's an old term for ghosts walking through the fog. When the fog is around them, they're covered in positive ionization in that water, and so they're easier to see in fog because they're on a sort of a negative plane. They're not as positively charged as we living bodies are, but they are still an entity life force. And they don't go to heaven the way people assume that the Bible has told them, because I know different. They're picked up and recycled. And that's another talk for another show entirely. But religion is not...
I'm concerned.
Go ahead.
What do you think's going to happen with a lot of us when we pass?
Well, can you imagine 1.5 million people in one city with no power, and all of a sudden everything that they've known and believed suddenly changes?
No.
They're in deep trouble.
I tried to wake everyone up.
There are people that are going to fight you over that. There's cognitive dissonance. They'll get mad at you. They'll chase you away. They'll ostracize you. You have to believe in yourself. What you see is the truth. Trust you. Don't trust anyone else. Trust you.
Yeah, trust your eyes.
Trust your eyes.
I have footage of huge fireball. I spoke with the guy that runs the meteor site, and he was a good guy. He called me from Europe, and he said it's weird over here every time he comes over now. But he told me they're monitoring them all over the world.
Right.
And I filmed it, and he said he wasn't sure if it was a chem bomb, or him and his partner thought it was a meteor that came down.
Okay, well, as far as the
fireball,
chems
right?
go, they stopped a lot of normal activity. They've been spraying since the mid-'90s because they didn't want people to catch on, and they didn't want the outflux of the radiation of our sun, which was changing even back then, to soak through. Now, the G7 countries pay for the chemtrails, and the non-G7 countries don't, and that's why they have drought and flooding, whereas we have a level of protection. The chemies kind of protect us, even though, it's a lesser of two evils. They're putting up a bunch of metallic stuff up there, and that way it electrically stays up there, so it continues to block the sunlight input and block our view out. So folks at sea level do not see what I see up here in Montana. I get so much better view of the planets up here than everybody else, and that's why I'm amazed to this day that other people all over the world don't see these. I can't believe
No, they
how.
don't.
I don't know
when
how.
I'm driving on the highway and up in the mountains, okay, and as you're going up higher and higher, and it's big open highways now. It's not like it's small winding roads, and I'm seeing all this in front of me, right? I mean, you can't miss it.
No,
you know how
can't.
massive. No, and nobody. I'll go look at people. They don't see it.
Well, there are a group of people that aren't supposed to. The people who are going to ascend up and out eventually through maybe a few generations or this generation. I don't have all the details. And then there's going to be the people who are left behind who have to still keep doing what the Earth is laid out to do. They have to have that group of core people that work and go mine gold and go dig for this and go dig for that and produce. And then when there are far fewer of us, that's when, of course, we'll have some intervention. But only after all the negative, terrible things and population culling, because every cycle there's a culling of the herd on purpose. To survival of the fittest and all that. They're making a better animal out of us, which is all part of the plan. So the best thing you can do is believe in yourself and prepare and plan and know that you're awake. And the promise is that the awake people will survive. And you need to get solid rock, get away from people, get away from population, plan ahead, because once the shit hits the fan, there's no road out because you can't drive a car on a full highway.
That's if you can get gas to start with.
You cannot leave when everybody else is trying.
I'm trying to figure out last minute what I haven't. I heard you make a comment, and I've lived by it. I'd rather have you. You made a comment. You said I'd rather have what I don't
and
need,
not need than need and not have.
That's it. So I've been preparing, and I'm just wondering. I've got lights, I mean, I've done everything I can. I don't know. I feel like I'm missing something. What would you? What's a small list of what you think is the most the necessities?
Well, let
What
me
we
give you
should
a
have?
suggestion. What you do is you go to your breaker box in your house, and you get your whole family ready for it, and you walk over and you shut those breakers off in your house. Just turn your power off and spend 2 days without it. Try that.
Okay.
That'll give you all the answers you need right there. It takes 2 gallons to flush the toilet. Where are you going to go to the bathroom? How much toilet paper do you have? Do you have enough antibacterial agent? Do you have enough Band-Aids? How are you going to cook? Well, how are you going to light your home? How are you going to stay warm? All of those normal things. Just imagine yourself with no electricity in your house, ever.
Okay.
Do you have solar panels? Can you create small amounts of electricity to run the things that you need from the sun?
I have a generator, and the guy stole all my gas cans.
Well, how long are you going to keep? A 20-gallon can or a 50-gallon can of gas is only going to last so long, and it will go bad over time. So
I've got a lot of firewood, but even that's only going to last so long.
Right, and I would at that point keep my gas for my chainsaw rather than for a generator.
I've got bug out bags everywhere from the car to over here. I've been filling them up, collecting them for years now, and
well, what I recommend is you pile up everything in one place for bug out. That way, you know what the size of your pile is, and you're not spending all your time looking for stuff.
Okay.
I've got all my camping gear in one pile.
Well, okay. Yeah, that's what I figure. I'm just saying, in my opinion, I think we're going to be, like you said, camping.
Yep.
Basically.
Yeah, and that's what the coming tale is that everything that we know is going to change. And if it doesn't happen, it's going to change over a slow, miserable process. And if nothing changes at all, oh my God, we're going to let these good old boys run this? We can't. We can't do that.
And I agree with you. I don't think they're as powerful as they come on to be, because there's too much major fear everywhere, and they're taking things down. They're really going after truthers out there, and it's because they're afraid. They don't want to wake the people up at all.
No, they don't, and that's why they're tiptoeing, and they don't want to. All the misinformation sites are doing very well. They're making a great deal of profit and money and selling T-shirts and coffee cups and everything. And those of us who are telling the truth for free are getting shut down.
I was on your Facebook when Montana Skywatch 2, while you were talking. You've got all kinds of bots and everything. I think they're bots, and they've got all kinds of stuff on microwave weapons, people, and a lot of stuff on aliens. But it's silly, and I hit the report button for you.
If those come up on my site, I usually go through every day and remove them. What we deal with on Montana Skywatchers is actual member reported sightings. We don't deal with a lot of videos and a lot of crap information from so and so says this and Marshall Masters and these guys and I'm going to mention them. I don't care. Jeff and Scott and Steve, WSO and the Planet X and all these other sites. They're just selling a bunch of hooey, and they're guessing. And they're scaring people, and they're pulling in the dollars doing it. Now, that's part of my credibility issue. I never wanted to charge money for this because I didn't want anybody to chalk me up as to one of those idiots. What we do is comparative science, and we try to get real live reports and go around NASA and go around all the money. And that's why it's worked as well as it has.
My question, I know you have a great site. To me, it's always been very dignified, and I've learned a lot of good people there. It's just right lately I'm seeing all the talks and what have you.
Yeah, we've got another influx, and of course, there's been numerous groups of trolls out after me, and I've had death threats, and I've had invasions on my sites, and I just go through and weed them out as fast as I can. My best recommendation is if you see something negative, ignore it.
Yeah. Okay.
Because
I worry about new people seeing it and thinking,
and there's so much disinformation, and they're scaring little old ladies and little religious people and everything, and I'm fighting as hard as I can to avoid that, and I'm trying to keep the level. And granted, I'm spending a good deal of my time trying to correct people, but now people are feeling pushed, and I'm getting pushy according to them, and you're bombing us, and And yes, and for those people who feel uncomfortable that I've pushed as hard as I have, it's because I understand what I'm talking about, and I know for a fact what I'm talking about. And just look at my track record. I've been so accurate over. Go ahead.
My final question and comment is my comment is that I really sincerely can't thank you enough. If it weren't for you, I would have lost my mind, because I knew what I was seeing, and I knew what was happening, but I couldn't find any. I was watching people with little red dots and this and that, and I knew it wasn't that because
all the
I was filming too much. I knew. Yeah,
the chemis and lens flares drove me crazy for the first 5 years, and I finally just had to grow out of it and say, okay, they're entitled to their opinion. I can't correct everybody. But and it's an honor to have been able to give you this information. I fought it so heavily at the beginning in 1980 when they told me that I was not allowed to tell anyone, and I knew that everyone had a right to know about this stuff. I mean, it's a basic right.
How did you live with that? Sam, how did you live with that?
I've been to insanity and back about 8 times.
Wow.
I've never been locked up or anything, and I don't take any medication, and I don't even drink. I don't drink alcohol. I used to be a bartender. I mean, I went into another field and just made some money to get by on. But I knew
this has had to affect your life, knowing about this all this time.
Totally, it's affecting me to this day. I spend all day, if I had fingernails to chew, because I clip my nails. I'm a clean freak. I'm almost Sheldon Cooper, except I don't have as many childish quirks as he does. But the point with it is that I know I'm correct. Otherwise, they would have never bothered with me. They would have never taken me to Langley. They'd never forced me into a 30-year non-disclosure agreement. I would have been just some stupid kid in high school. And they would have never contacted me and taken me, whether I liked it or not, after I refused them the first time.
The way they, I know how they are, so you're lucky that they didn't do anything worse to you, other than ruin your life.
They've done a lot worse. They've fried my house. I've been through 12 computers. They scare the hell out of me regularly. They take my public benefits away from me on a regular basis. I get threats in the mail. My mail is held up for a month at a time, and I don't get my bills. My phone is disconnected regularly.
Yeah, he's targeted, Huggy Bear.
Yeah, I'm targeted.
Me too. Join the club. Me too. And they killed my husband, Sam. So when they're
careful what you say on
I'll leave it there.
Right.
I'll leave it there. Right. Okay.
I'd say a portion of what I think sometimes, and other times I'm as honest as I can be, because I feel people have the right to know, and I am so glad that you have benefited from this, because this is my intention. I'm not doing this for fame. I'm not doing this for fortune. God knows. I'm not. I'm broke. And I got 2 kids at home, no child support.
I can't even remember how I found you, but I mean, I was 24/7 searching for someone on the internet that I had any other way to turn to, and I was desperate to find someone that was seeing and knew what I was seeing, and like you say, I mean, some of this takes up the whole sky.
And this is what part of the Pleiadians told me, that people would be drawn to me, the people who were supposed to. And they told me that there was this natural calling that would be imbibed to me somehow. I don't know all the background behind it. And this is where I started arguing with the guy. He's a 7-foot-tall guy with a weird funky head standing there in big white robes, and all his little grays running around. Go ahead.
Did he say did he say anything about the people that would be drawn to you? Why? Well, I am drawn to you every day.
It goes to the assumption of the Rainbow Tribe afterwards, and the many enlightened people, like-minded communities will form, and those people will be approached later. And I was referred to as a future emissary for first contact. Wow. Now, I've just let out a big secret I'm not supposed to talk about, but it has to come out sometime, because people will be drawn to me up here in Montana, and this is what they told me.
Wow.
Yeah, how do you deal with that? I mean, how do you tell yourself that you're supposed to save people?
Wow.
Yeah, it messes with
you. I'm sure you have, Sam.
And I didn't truly believe until after starting this, where over the first few years I was searching for that person too, and I kept talking to all other Indigos I kept meeting, and I kept going, well, where is our leader? And then this one lady, who I totally respect because she's very wise and very at peace, She said, Sam, just shut up and lead. And I went, whoa. And that took me about a year to even deal with her telling me that. And I'm not trying to lead because I don't want the job. But I'm already been told that this is what is going to occur. And I apparently have the level of knowledge that other people don't have, which was what I was also told. So how do you argue with that? You know, how do you argue with, you know, what somebody would refer to as an angel standing there telling you that you're going to be the savior of people in your area? And if you can't come to meet me, then you should be me and save as many people in your area as you can, even though that will be hugely difficult because you're going to have all kinds of naysayers and all kinds of, you know, emotional basket cases and stuff. And the trick is those who know what's going on are going to probably have their head together a lot better than people who don't. And anybody who's got their... Go ahead.
That's the part that's, in case, I don't know if you know about, I've been researching as we're pole shifting, and the closer we get to that 0 point, people are going to start losing their minds.
They're already doing that because of this extra moon. And we've been seeing the examples of that in the behavior changes on Facebook and the animosity that's been created at just the drop of a hat. Mm-hmm. And people are talking about, you know, they're hearing their ears ringing nonstop. Well, these planets put off sounds, and we are hearing that. And the animals hear it, the dogs. When the planets go over the top of us, the dogs start barking and the birds start singing.
Yep.
I hear the planets now.
Yeah, and all you have to do is go, you know, look up a planet sounds on YouTube, and they'll give you numerous different sounds of planets, and all these harmonic, funky tones that the planet has been hearing over the last 10 years, or about 8 years, is the tectonic plates rubbing together like a finger on a crystal glass. That woo, and we've got harmonics going on from the rub of the two solar systems.
That's what I'm hearing.
Right, and a lot of people
I open the door. I can open the door the last couple of days, and I hear it. I can tell. I'm hearing. I look overhead, and I can see the planets over me and around me. They're big.
And when I first got on the show tonight, they were talking about that as well. There was this feeling in animals and stuff. Well, they're not beaten to death by the sounds of humanity and going in town and having a semi-truck and a train and a police and fire engine going past them. So they're not used to the noise in town. But out here in the woods, animals feel it and sense it. They know when there's an earthquake coming because there's a harmonic that they makes them uncomfortable. And we're going through that as well. And in Revelations, that's discussed as the birthing pains in men and women. By the way, I have 4 years of college credit religion behind me as well. I'm highly researched in all the religions.
Oh, wow.
I could be a brother in the Catholic priest tomorrow, probably.
Wow.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot more study, but yes, I've studied all. I'm basically Buddhist, and I have been since I was 9 years old. I meditate, I om chant, I do grounding techniques, and that's how my brain works. Why my brain works the way it does is because I've touched Earth, and Earth charges me and turns on that unused portion of my brain to allow me to have these revelations of thought that I put the pieces together. It took me 25 years to deal with what that guy told me. The Pleiadian, and he referred to himself as the student, because he didn't want me to even try and pronounce his name because he said it would be an insult. But anyway, the student told me all these things, and I couldn't believe what he was telling me. But here I am, 25 years later, after chewing this and trying to understand it, it is making sense now. And in 2010, when the Ascension started, it was like somebody opened up the big sliding glass window, and there was a world outside. And I finished my equation in my own mind. I had some open-ended pieces as to what the universe was built on, according to our binary solar system, and how all that worked. And then in 2010, it just came to me like a dump truck on top of me. Boom. And I just grew. And I got younger. My hair grew back. I lost a whole bunch of weight. I healed in certain manners, and you can do that now. We can self-heal by believing that it's happening. We have to change our speech. We have to say, I am healing, rather than I wish I could heal. You have to tell yourself you are. And it goes along with being safe as well. You have to tell yourself you will survive.
That's right.
Okay, I'm going to do that. Thank you. Well, you can't hurt.
You have to believe.
Okay. I had visions
thank you,
of... thank you.
Well, and thank you for liking and listening.
You're welcome.
It's been an honor to help people.
It's been an honor to here to even talk to you, and I can't thank you enough. And thank you, BADBABY. And I'm going to put myself on mute.
Okay, nice talking to you. And by the way, guys, am I going to get a copy of this somehow?
Yes, yes.
Can you post it to my page?
On your page, yes.
Awesome, because I'd like to repeatedly share it, and then, of course, we'll promote you guys a little bit as well.
So that'd be great.
Well, thank you. Yes.
Well, if
Wonderful.
I use your audio, then it's going to be your name on the thing, so you'll get some, and I'll get some. Now, I'm not trying to make any money off this because this is a right of everyone to know the truth, and we've been lied to and sequestered in so many ways that all you have to do is believe in the basics, because it's that simple. We just have a binary solar system. It's electrical. It works. It functions. It's not going to break apart. It's going for a reason, and it's not in human control.
Well, like you said, it's a rite of passage.
We appreciate you taking your time out, Samuel, and joining us tonight. We did go a little bit over, about 15 minutes, but that's okay.
Okay, well,
we
good.
would like to have you come back in a few weeks and update us on what's going on.
Oh yeah, I'd be more than willing to give a planet report, because that's what I do every morning. I get up. I don't sleep. I only sleep a few hours at a time, and so I'm up 3 o'clock in the morning doing all my research before I start posting at 6 a.m. And I've done this every day. I've got over 40,000 hours in research on Montana Skywatchers alone, not including all the hours of all the researchers who have contributed. So, I mean, we've got a really stable comparative science thing going here, and all the other guys are out there guessing, and we know exactly what's up there because we get reports every day from around the world. And when a cloud in Japan matches a cloud in Michigan, excuse me, that's not a cloud. That's a planetary object that is so far above that we're all seeing it.
Yeah.
And over the time, we've learned that there is space clouds, and if you go to Suspicious Observer, they talk about space water. And the Electric Universe and the Thunderbolts projects, they would have the answers if they would include the other binary half of us. But they don't, because they're not allowed to, because they're getting federal funding.
Well, I'm looking forward to some inside telepathic communication from you.
Well, anybody can do that. All you have to do. The problem is people don't have the answers to know how good they are. And I've gained that because I've talked to so many people long distance around the world, and over time I've gone, and you can read my backstories in my some of the files where people talk about my far-seeing skills, and I'm very good at it. I try not to brag, but
well, I'm already very fluent in telepathic communication.
Well, well, what kind of a vibe have you gotten off of me?
Well, actually, the other day I was getting some vibes when we were on the phone.
Okay.
But, I remember when we were talking, I told you that I have the capability of being around someone and my spirit will tell me to get away, like I'm drinking curdled milk or something.
Well,
when we started talking.
I'm, of course, mentioning this for your listeners and everything. And if people feel that they've got to contact me, like we talked about, I am in the Montana phone book. And my last name is spelled Hofman with one F, which is the Dutch version instead of the German. And I'm Dutch. I'm a first-generation American. My father was in a concentration camp during World War II. And if people are drawn to me, by all means, they can call me on the phone or come to Montana Skywatchers, or I'll refer them to you guys or whatever you need. But the point with it is that we have to share and connect. And I unfortunately see so many egos out there that are bruised so easily that a good portion of the people don't want to believe that my information is fact, because it is fact. It's time-proven information. And I don't guess. I make sure that we've got multiple sightings before we call anything. And over the years, this has proven to be a science, and these planets are here. We can't deny it. It's been so long. And, all you have to do is look at my material, and I'll show you the same cloud from 2011 and 2015 and 2017 and 2018, and they all look the same. Well, excuse me, that's not a cloud. That's a planet bottom. And they get bigger and smaller and bigger and smaller, and we've documented their arrival every day. Anyway, I digress.
Well, I'm looking forward to speaking with you in a couple of weeks
sure.
as we update and move forward with this process. And You know, I'm really hoping, Sam, the best part of this or the worst part of this is behind us, and we get through this without any major upheaval on the planet. I truly say that with all my heart.
Not to dash your hopes, but you know, we need a wake-up call. The only way that we're ever going to push this forward is man will never change unless he's forced to, and only at the edge of destruction will he move. So we have to have another Charlie Binsk. We have to have an East Coast ocean event or a major blackout for a good portion of time so people will wake up and start paying attention to those around us instead of isolating ourselves as we've done and trying to live off of this greed factor because we're all under such pressure that we all have to treat each other like crap just to get by. And that's not cool.
I can't disagree with what you're saying, but I'm simply saying that hopefully we can do this in a much lesser destructive way. That's all I'm saying.
I'm sorry, but it's only going to get worse. If you look what's going on with these close planetary passes, the weather is just getting worse.
I agree. I can't disagree with what you're saying because I say the same thing.
Remember, landscape is never permanent.
You're right, but nothing is permanent. It
changes so fast. 1 minute you're sitting on the mountain, and the next minute you're in the valley. And that's
or underwater.
Happening. Yeah,
right, ride that roller coaster.
Yeah, I call it a slow train wreck, and we're still going.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
And I'll let you guys wind it up because I know you need to. Otherwise, I could talk for the next week.
Okay. Well,
I would very much like to do another show.
Huggy Bear wants me to send her my email. Don't leave the chat room. I will put my email address up in the chat for you in a minute. And
I'm sorry, my email doesn't work.
No, I'm talking. She wants my email.
I know. I was just, saying, if anyone want to get hold of me, sorry, my email does not work.
Yeah. She wants to call you, so I told her I'd email you your phone number to her.
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay, I talk to all kinds of people, even some people I don't really want to. But I feel I have a level of patience because I care about people, and I have heard some Lulu stories in my time, and I'm usually a very kind person to them as well, and I have a lot of people that are afraid to talk to me because there's a level of celebrity awe, and yes, I am known around the world. Do you know that my videos have been translated now into 5 different languages?
I did not know that.
Yeah, they're in Swedish, they're in French, they're in Spanish. And the other day I heard a guy doing my voiceover in Japanese, and it was hilarious. The guy was just so dramatic, and it was just like, wow. And people treat me like
that's definitely a true compliment.
Yeah, and I'm just a guy up here that sees stuff, and I know stuff, and I can read stuff across the planet, and I don't have to have a TV in front of me to do it.
Gotcha.
Well, when I first started doing my shows, I was doing them with Chris with Freedom Fighters for America, and we were contacted by somebody in Japan that wanted our permission to allow them to use our characters, Bad Baby and Chris, as they did a comic book about us.
Wow, cool.
So somewhere's out there's a comic book about and Bad Baby being a superhero.
I've had other people include me in stories and stuff, novels that they're writing, but it's great. It's good stuff. Not that I'm seeking fame, but I have to have a level of that in order to get the message out, so people actually stop, listen, and believe me. Because I'm not doing this, to better or further myself. I'm doing this because it's right, it's truthful, it's proven. And people need to know this stuff. They really need this information because we don't live in a gravitational situation, and everything based on that is a huge lie. And the lies stack up so thick, it's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay,
well, I look forward to speaking with you in the future.
Yes.
Another great show. I want to thank you both for coming out and spending time with me tonight.
Thank you.
We will have you back probably about 3 weeks, Samuel. I'll get a hold of you, and I'll set up a date.
That works
for me. We'll have you come back out here.
And next time, I promise to take into account, where are you, Eastern or Central Time?
I'm Eastern.
Okay, next time I will take into account Eastern time instead of Montana Standard Time.
And don't forget, daylight savings time changes this weekend. So
This weekend,
shorter
spring
now.
ahead, fall back.
Yeah. Yep.
Got it.
No, we spring forward. We already fell back. We're going to fall back in the fall. We spring forward in the spring.
Yeah, and we're going to continue to see nasty weather on the East Coast because of these close passes.
Yeah, they said there's another storm that's circling around coming back up the East Coast.
Yeah.
I would reevaluate property value anywhere on that side of the country, period, right now. Anyway, I'll let you guys go.
They were saying over in the Boston area, they were getting 6 inches of snow every hour.
And, those drawn-out tides all over the planet come from Attu's moon as well. And people don't get that. And they're wondering, why is this happening? All these northern hemisphere hurricanes in winter? Excuse me, that doesn't exist. And that's what's happening on both coasts right now.
We'll save it for the next one, Sam.
Got her.
Absolutely.
You guys take care.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you, guys. I'm going to close out with my closing bumper song.
This song says, no matter who you are, no matter where you go in your life, at some point you're going to need somebody to stand by you.